So hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in this video we are going to analyze the mistake which I have made in my business law paper which I have appeared for September 2025. So as you can see that I was able to score only 30 marks out of 100 marks. So in this video let us see that what mistake I have made during my examination. So firstly, as you can see that I have started with question number 1. So I was a bit confident in question number 2. As you can see that I have wrote the section as well. So I have started with question number 2 rather than starting with question number 1. So format that I followed is that provision, fact and conclusion. But as I already thought that up to 4 marks question, I will be following the provision and conclusion in order to save the time. So it was of 4 marks. So what I did means I wrote the provision and conclusion. So the mistake in this question I did is that writing the short form. As you can see that I have wrote the section in short form. So this is the mistake that the checker has found, and because of this the checker hasn't allotted me the good marks. You can see here, although I have wrote everything neat and clean underlining the keywords, although I was not able to score the marks. And I also like to say that don't try the answer directly. As you can see that I have wrote the conclusion directly with starting with yes or no. In this case it is right, so the checker has allotted me 0.5 here. But in case if it will be wrong, then the checker hasn't allotted me any marks here. So after writing this question I have went to that is 2A number, and the thing is that I have wrote every question in the center so that the checker won't find any difficulty while checking my paper to see rather than which question it is. So as you can see that again I have started with the provision here. So as you can see that I haven't wrote the section, but I have wrote here that relevant provision here, and again I have started with the here like that is arrow. I have used in every question using this like arrow just because I didn't want to write my question in paragraph. It will be like boring to the checker. So what I did means I have used in every question using this arrow so that it will be a bit attractive to the checker. And again it was of nearly 3 marks. So again I have wrote the provision and conclusion. So again the checker has allotted me like a 1.5 here. And then I went to the question number 2. So in question number 2 the question was about memorandum and articles and their difference between. So in first instance what I did here means I have wrote the explanation about memorandum and then articles, and then I have started with the difference between. So as you can see that the question has already stated to write the only 3 difference between here. So I have wrote only 3 difference between using the basic column, MOA, AOA and explaining this all. And although I have highlighted the keywords here, it was of 7 marks, although the checker has allotted me only 2.5 here. So what mistake I have did means I have wrote very basic thing about memorandum, articles and also very basic difference between MOA and AOA, and that could be the possible reason the checker hasn't allotted me good marks here, although everything is right here. So after that I went to the question number 2C. So as you can see that what a pattern I have followed here, I have wrote the fact, and this means this might be my possible mistake what I did in this examination. So as I have realized that while writing the question we have to start with the provision, fact and then at the end conclusion. So but what I did here, I have directly started with the fact. So that mistake I have made in this examination. So although the checker I have given right here, and then after that I have wrote the provision, again I have wrote here relevant provision because I haven't read the section, and then I have started with the provision here again here in that is arrow form rather than writing in paragraphs, and I have highlighted the keywords, and then after that I have wrote here conclusion. So in conclusion I have directly wrote the answer, and I like to say that avoid this writing in such a form. If it is wrong then the checker directly will cut and he will allot you 0. If it could be wrong also and if you will be explaining, then there may be the possible chances to get some marks in the examination. After the 3 number I have started with the question number 4, 1A. So again it is of possible of 4 marks. So what I did here means I have wrote the provision and conclusion, and again I have wrote the provision in that is separate arrow wise, and then I have again what I did here, I have given my conclusion directly. And also the possible mistake that I did here is that I haven't explained the conclusion very well. I have used that is to the point, but what checker was expecting here to explain a bit more about the situation and the conclusion. So that may be also the possible thing that I made mistake during my examination. And then I have went to the 4A, that is 2 number. So again I have wrote here the provision, and again I have wrote provision in the arrow wise as I said that, and again conclusion using that direct words. and I have again here shown very short conclusion. Rather than explaining it, I have wrote the conclusion to the point. Again here, if you can see that I went to the 4 number, and it was the question that I made mistake here is that a negotiable instrument, that is explain negotiable instrument and types of negotiable instrument. But up to here I explained about negotiable instruments, so for that the checker has give right mark. But after that I have made a blunder mistake. It wasn't about asking about bill of exchange, promissory note or any other like check. It was the question for types of negotiable instrument, that is of inland instrument, foreign instrument. That was the question, and because of that already I have wrote this much. The checker hasn't allotted me any marks. As you can see that he has given me 0 marks out of 7 marks. So the thing I like to that is underline here, that is read the question properly. What mistake I did in my examination, although I read the question but I didn't understand the question what he was asking from me. And as I can see, if I'll say, then I just wrote what I knew. I didn't wrote what they are asking from me, and that is the blunder mistake I have made in this examination. Although I read the question but I didn't read it properly, and because of that I have made such a blunder mistake. And as you can see that out of 7 marks I have got 0 mark here. And then after that I have started with question number 4C. So the question again was asking about what is law, and for that I have wrote what is law here, and for that the checker has allotted me 1 marks. And the question was about types of law or anything similar like that, but the question wasn't of process of making law. But again I thought that what I thought here means I have just read process of making law. So what I did means I just thought that rather than leaving this question, let me write what I knew. At least I'll be getting some marks, not full marks, but at least 1 2. So that was I was thinking at that time, and I just wrote the process of making law. Although the question was not asking about process of making law, but I just wrote because as I said that I knew. I didn't write what they're asking from me, but I just wrote what I knew. So that is the thing. I just wrote the process of making law that I was new at that time, and I just was thinking that although I will not able to get full marks, but although I'll be getting some like half 1 marks, 2 marks, and that was the thing that is going in my mind. So as you can see that I have wrote the process of making law, and then after that I have wrote here various source of law, and the question was about what is law and various source of law, and this wasn't the source, although this was the source but not a proper and definite answer. So because of that the checker has allotted me 2 marks out of 6 marks, although I have wrote 2 pages. But the thing is that the answer was not relevant to the question, so the checker has allotted me 2 marks here. And then after that I went to the question number 6 here, that is 6A number. And as you can see that it was the question of nearly about 3 to 4 marks I guess, and I have wrote very in short form. As you can see that it is not even a full page, so because of that the checker has allotted me 0.5 here, that is 0.5, that is total 1 marks here. And then after that I went to the question number 6A double dash, that is 6A2 number. So it was again the question of negotiable instrument. Again I wrote the question in bullet form, and again I have wrote the conclusion here. And the thing, as I already said, that the thing I made good in my examination is writing the question number at the center, and don't write your provision in paragraphs. As I said that use that is bullet points in order to write the provision to make it attractive. And then after that I went to the question number 6C, and the question was asking about hire purchase and the difference between hire purchase and sale. As you can see that I have wrote very few points about hire purchase, and nearly about 1 2 3 and 5 points about that is difference between sale and hire purchase. So as you can see that this is the mistake as I did. The checker was expecting more to write about hire purchase, but I have only wrote about 5 to 6 lines about hire purchase, and then I directly went to the difference between sale and hire purchase. So it was the question of 7 marks, although I have wrote here basis, sale, hire purchase. I have wrote and I have underlined that is keywords. Although it was like to the point, similar to book, but the checker hasn't allotted here like good marks to me. As you can see that the checker has allotted only 3 marks out of that is 7 marks. So in this question I can say that the checker hasn't checked properly, although I have wrote to the point. If you can see, then I have wrote exact, but not exact but similar. Most of the things I have wrote from the book, although the checker hasn't allotted me good marks here. and then after that I went to the question number 1. So you can see that I have wrote the question number nearly at last of my paper, nearly at the ending time of my examination. So again I have started to write the provision in bullet points, and then after that I have directly wrote the conclusion. Because at last there wasn't much more time to write the answer, so what I did means I have directly wrote the conclusion. And the mistake that I did here means, you can see that how small conclusion I have drawn here. The checker was expecting from students, as you can see, that to write and to explain about the conditions and the possible effect of the question. But what I did means I just wrote yes or no. That is to the point, and that is not the checker was expecting from me. And that is also the blunder mistake I have made in my examination. And then I went to the 1B, and the question was asking about that a company is an artificial person, that like a characteristic of the company. So again I have wrote here this question in the paragraph, as you can see that. And then after that it was asking about the common seal. So again I wrote about the common seal here, and it was nearly about the 6 to 7 marks, and again the checker has allotted me 2.5 marks. And in this question I haven't underlined the keywords, as I already said that there was lack of time with me. So at last what I did is I started to left underline the keywords, and then I went to the question number 1C. So again I have wrote with the provision. So I have wrote only this much about the provision, and then I have went to the, that is, you can see the answer question. And after writing this I went here to the conclusion. As you can see that this whole page was about the conclusion, and sorry, this all page was about the provision, and then after this I have wrote the conclusion here. So as you can see that the first number, as I have said already, that don't use the direct form like yes or no. Don't try to answer the answer, don't try to write your answer indirectly yes or no, as I have already said that. As you can see I have wrote here yes, it is right, the checker has allotted me marks. This is also right, the checker has allotted me marks. But this, you can see, it is wrong here. And as I have already told you that it is wrong, the checker has, and I'm saying that the checker hasn't read my answer also. He, as he have seen here no, what he did means he have crossed and given and allotted me 0 marks. If I would not have written here no, I have explained the question and then I have written the, like, if it could be possible wrong, then the checker, there may be the probability that the checker may have allotted me 0.5 marks. But what I did at the first instance, I have wrote directly to the point and it is wrong. So because of that, the checker has directly given me 0 marks. So don't try to write your answer directly using yes or no. Firstly try to explain and then you can go through your answer. And after that again I have went to the question number 5 here. So again I have wrote the provision, and as you can see that I have wrote only one section in my examination, that is the first question, and then every question I have using the relevant provision. Again I have wrote the provision here and conclusion, and again I have drawn the conclusion in very short here. And then after that I have went to the 5 number. Again I have using the same, that is provision, and again using my conclusion to the very short and to the point. And the checker, as I said, that he was expecting more to elaborate the conclusion, but I didn't. Again I went to the 5C, and as you can see that I have wrote only to the point because there wasn't any time with me. So what I did is I have wrote as much as how much I can. So to the point, if I say, then in question number 1 I have got 6 marks out of 20 marks, and I haven't, that is, attempt the question number 1A, that is of 4 marks. Okay, and in 2 number I have got 9.5 marks out of 20 marks, and 3 number I have left in option. 4 number I have got 6 marks out of 20 marks. 5 number I have got 3 marks out of 20 marks, and in 6 number I have got 5.5 marks out of 20 marks. And although in 5 marks I have left the question number, that is of 5A of 4 marks, 5B of 3 marks, and 6B of 6 marks. So what I did means 4 marks here, 8 marks, 11 marks, and 6, 17 marks. I have attempted only of 83 marks. And to be honest, that is the big mistake I have made in my examination. So out of 100 marks I have wrote only, that is 83 marks. And this is the blunder mistake I have made in my examination. So the first thing you need to realize and do that, attempt each and every question of your examination. And if you don't attempt each and every question of your examination, then the probability of passing your examination becomes low, very low. And I just realized my mistake, and I have appeared in my Jan 2026, and with God's grace I was able to score 79 in my law paper. And I have like analyzed my mistake, and the big thing I have that realized that I'm say that I have attained 100 upon 100 in January 2026, and that is the reason I was able to score 79 marks out of 100 marks in my Jan 26. So in the upcoming videos I will be showing my Jan 26 RTI, so what improvement I have made, and I was able to score 79 out of 100 marks.